Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and I got this thing running the other day, but it was running on just starting fluid. I gave it a shot, popped off, ran, quit. So we got to fix the carburetor. A couple things I checked that I know is bad. This fuel shut-off or anti-backfire, I don't know what that does for backfiring, but it's not working. So just to see if this thing is going to run good, I'm just going to cut the stem off the end of it and screw it back in and use it for a bolt to plug the hole. So we got to pull this thing off, throw it in the tank, clean it up. It's really filthy. And let's see if we can get it running. First thing we'll do is take off this tube that goes from the carburetor to the air box. I don't know what you want to call it. We'll throw that in there and clean that too, because this thing is really filthy. I don't know, what is this? I just grabbed a socket. This is a 5/16. It takes these bolts out that holds the carburetor to the, I would call this the intake manifold that goes between the engine block and the carburetor. That's just car lingo, I guess. I have no idea what they would call that. And of course it came with all new gaskets. Should get a box to throw all this stuff in, I guess. Don't want to lose anything. Now if you rotate this thing around, the linkage will come right out of the control bracket for the choke. And then you spin it around some more and turn it sideways. And the little rod and spring will come out of the butterfly for acceleration. Oh, let's tip this down here and see what we can do. I got all the parts there to rebuild this thing. Now this is a Nicky carburetor. Most people throw these in the garbage. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to grab us a pair of side cutters. And this is a little thing that seals the bottom of the carburetor. And when you energize this with your ignition key, it pulls this down, then it lets gas go up into the carburetor. Well, we're just going to pop the end off of that, so I can use it just as a plug, more or less, to plug that bottom hole up. Because that, on a Nicky, that doesn't hold the float bowl to the carburetor. These two side screws do. Boy, this thing is just absolutely filthy. The biggest problem with it is the needle valve does not work. Oh, look at the crap in here. Look at the dirt in there. I don't even know what that is. Just dried up in there. Well, the ultrasonic cleaner will take care of that. Well, at least it's not bottoming out. We can pull this off of here. There's one of the small jets. And we got this little basket I've showed before. You squeeze it and it opens up. That way you don't lose any parts inside the cleaner. You can't get out. Take this old gasket off. That must be a little, turn that bad boy on. That's some kind of a seal. I don't know what it would do. Well, that O-ring is shot. And I guess that's about it, unless we want to take the butterflies off and replace the felt seals and this tiny little spring. But they look okay to me. It sure works good. So I think I'm just going to leave that alone. So we're going to throw this in the tank and see what happens. Now, I keep forgetting, but as soon as I turn this thing on, it's going to wipe the sound out and you ain't going to hear a thing. Oh. I can put the camera over top and show you what it's doing when it's cleaning. We're going to throw all these things in there too. It looks like it all needs a good bath. I might as well take that one off too. Ah. Well, you have to come up with the right one pretty quick. That one was a little tighter. I don't know if you'll be able to see anything of what's going on, but let me bring the camera over here and I'm going to switch cameras so I can see what you're seeing once I get it on the tank. Okay, for some reason when you turn this thing on, it just totally wipes out the sound. But I turned on the machine, I'm blowing the bubbles off out of the line of sight so you can see what I call smoke coming off the parts. That's the dirt that's coming off of and out of the inside of these parts. And look at all the stuff coming off that carburetor. Okay, I hope you could see the smoke, I call it, but it's all the dirt that was coming out of this carburetor when it was in that cleaner. It totally messes up the sound, so I couldn't talk. I'll do a voiceover on it maybe. But we're going to put this thing back together. Then we're going to have to take a break so I can run over to the hardware store and pick up a new grommet that snaps in the bottom of the gas tanks so I can mount it back on here and see if this thing will run for any length of time without leaking all over the place. So let's put this together. First thing we want to do, or maybe actually the last thing, this little jet. You can't even see it. I certainly don't want to drop it. That's it. Very small. And if you look close, you can see it has an O-ring around it. Well, I bought this kit, and that O-ring doesn't come in this kit. And the jet don't come in the kit. So I guess we're just going to put this back in and hope for the best. When I go over there to get the tank grommet, I'll ask them why I didn't get the O-ring for that. But that drops down inside this main hole that goes over top of your tube. Now, when you get done cleaning these, I reamed all the holes out with one of these torch tip cleaners. And you want to make sure you get all these little holes. There's one there, and there's 4 of them in the top of this tube and down the center of the tube. You want to make sure it's all clean. We're going to drop this in here. It goes in O-ring first. I hope that's the way it went down in. I couldn't see if it flipped over or not. No, I guess not. Now to get it, there, finally fell down in the hole. Oh, let's dip this down. Now we're going to put the little O-ring. They say to put a little bit of Vaseline on that, just to help lubricate it. Because it doesn't take much to ruin that O-ring trying to slide it in there. Plus it kind of helps hold it in place. We'll slap that on there. If these things are leaking, from what I understand, this is usually what's bad, is that little O-ring. Then we want to put this gasket on here. They don't tell you how it goes. Well, that looks like it's covering everything. I don't see a gasket for the float bowl, actually. Oh, I guess you just hope for the best, so that ends up in the right place. That must be the gasket for the float bowl. It kind of sticks out all the way around. Boy, it just... pretty hard to align that. All right, now we'll stick in the new... This is actually what was leaking. It was the little needle. Everything else, I don't know if it was any problem or not. Put the pin back in. At least this one's not hitting. Some of them do, and you have to heat this up and bend it a little so this doesn't bottom out on the, I guess it would be the top of the float bowl. Now we'll put this thing on here. And hope for the best. I want to check this, make sure the needle is seating good. I usually vacuum test that. This is the way, my boss is, I'm old school, he's really old school, and this is the way he taught me to check the vacuum on the needle. And that one's sealing good. You suck on it a little, and he told me to put my tongue on there, and it should hold your tongue to the end of that tube, which it does, so I'm going to say that one's sealing up pretty good. Now this thing's got more gaskets. Here's an O-ring. Some of these, I guess you can take your pick if you want to use this O-ring or these. Well, this one's got one of them in it, so we'll put one of these back in here. Now I could tell this thing was been taken apart before by someone, because on the flange on the side of the head, it was all stuck pieces of gasket material, but the only thing that was on there was this metal plate. And why it's got a closing off most of the hole, I haven't got a clue. Maybe that's some type of a restriction, so it only gets so much fuel. So I made a gasket to match this, and I'm going to put a gasket between this plate and the block. Then it comes with a gasket to put, I don't think that goes on, it don't. They don't give you any instructions on where this stuff goes. The other one of these goes in this recess. I would call this the intake. And we're going to try to get that on there without losing our gaskets. So we're going to put these bolts in here. This is kind of new to me. We'll slip these on. Bolt this thing on here. Oops, running away from me. I feel a little safer putting that extra gasket in there. Maybe I don't need that, but I certainly don't want it sucking any air or it's not going to run right. This gasket goes here between the carburetor and this intake manifold, I'm going to call it. And we need these long bolts. My furnace just kicked on. Oh, I guess it's going to be a lot easier if I put this, hook up these linkages. thing is so tiny. You know what? I'm just going to hook that up first. It'll be a lot simpler. And the linkage. Now the choke goes in from the bottom. And then you spin this thing around. Choke rod goes in the slot on the top of the control plate. And we'll put our solenoid in here. That's not going to do anything but plug the hole in the bottom of the float bowl. If it runs, maybe I'll buy a new one. This is going to be on a machine that I'm thinking about building. That'll be interesting. Now I'll tell you later. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Okay, we got all this hooked up. Now we have to put on this one. That's got a seal in it. These two nuts go on there. Don't forget to put on your vent for your crankcase. And this is back together. Now this engine came off of a LT 100 Craftsman riding lawnmower. And it had a tube hooked onto here that went to something, and when I pulled the engine off of the tractor and scrapped all that out, that wasn't hooked to anything. So I will eventually get a cap and just cap that, keep the dirt out of it. But for running it in here, I'm just going to leave that open. It's not going to hurt a thing. Another thing I got to buy for this, it had a mouse nest in it too. And they didn't chew up the ground wire for the coil like they did on my engine for my log splitter. They chewed up the wire for the spark plug. So I've got some 600 volt black tape on there, and then I covered it with some white tape just to see if it's going to work. And if it runs, I'll have to replace the coil. But I tried to get these screws out that hold the coil into the aluminum posts coming off the engine block, and they do not want to come out. So I don't know if I'm going to fool that until it actually quits running, or if I want to replace it now. I hate to bust one of them off, because boy, then you're in a world of hurt. So that's all I can do right now. When I get the gas tank fixed and I get the battery up here, of course the battery is pretty dead, I'm using my new jump starter. This thing is awesome. One of the people I watch on YouTube that works on a lot of engines, she bought one of them. It's Chick-Canic is the name of her channel. Her and her husband are small engine people. They work on about 2,000 pieces of equipment a year. They have a huge following of small engine, or not small engine guys, commercial guys working on cutting trees, landscaping. They have quite a business worked up, but they've been doing it for 12 or 14 years. They live in Arkansas. So I think the next video I watch of theirs, they're probably going to be showing us all the snow that they got, and we've been getting dumped on. Last night we got about 8 inches. The night before that we got 6 to 7 inches. I'm really glad I bought that new Cub Cadet snowblower. That thing is a monster. There's no stopping that. I'll probably do a review on that and say what I really think of it, but it's a totally awesome machine. Got it from Home Depot. So I'll go out and grab the gas tank and run over to the hardware store and see if we can match up a grommet. And if they got some, we'll bring it back here and put it together and fill this thing up and see what flies. So hang on, I'll be back at some point. All right, they actually had the grommet I needed. So let's stick this thing in. Here's the old one. And, well, they look the same to me. Throw that one in the garbage. And we'll, supposedly they pop right in there, but they also tell you to put a little Vaseline on there so it'll go in better. And they're supposed to just seal right up all by themselves. How, I'm not really sure, but most all the gas tanks will have one of them grommets in it. Now we'll put some Vaseline on this stem. And try to get that in there. That's it. Believe it or not, that's supposed to seal. Now we'll get the rest of this stuff on here. We got the gas line. I think we're going to put some more Vaseline on this thing. Move this clamp up here. And I want to shut off as close to the carburetor as I can get it, so when I shut the fuel off, it won't take long to run out of gas. So we're going to cut this off kind of close. I think that ought to do it. I got the bracket bolted on. And we'll put this over here. All I got's this old style clamp. Now I'll get a gas can, dump some gas in here. I'll get the battery out, get that over here. Jumper's hooked up, and I'll explain what I'm doing once I try to start this thing. So let me get everything I need and I'll be right back. Well, we got everything hooked up. Got the dust collector hooked up to the muffler so we can run it. Get the battery hooked up, and this thing does not have any voltage in it at all. So we're going to have to use my jump box here. This is an awesome little outfit. And as soon as it recognizes that it's hooked to a battery, it turns itself on. And you can't hook it up backwards or it'll start screaming at you and shut itself down. Turn that on. Now, I've got the jumper cable hooked to the cable for the starter, and I'm going to touch this one on the bolt head, bolting the engine to this frame, because if I touch it to the stud on the starter, it's going to arc, burn the threads, and it'll give you a hard time getting a nut off and on if you have to change cables. So we don't want to arc it to the cable or to the starter. We'll arc it to this bolt down here, and it shouldn't hurt anything. Now we'll turn the gas on. I did check the grommet and it's not leaking. I don't know how them things seal like that, but that's what it did. Now I want to try and choke it by hand. I don't like accelerating an engine wide open cold. And that's what you're doing if you throttle the engine forward and choke it. So we're just going to give it a little gas if it stays there. And I'll play with the choke till it warms up and keeps running. So let's see what happens. Now I got a wire over here hooked to this plug to ground the coil out if I want to shut the engine down once it's been running for a while. Well, let's see what it does. Not bad. It lives. Now, in case you're wondering, this is the engine off of my boss, the owner of the shop I work at, or retired from, or whatever. He blew the decompression spring, or whatever you want to call it, on the crankshaft, or on the, oh golly, camshaft. So I got to tear that down and put a cam in it and then get it back on his snowblower. But I'm still waiting for the shaft that goes in the carburetor, that's around here somewhere, to choke it. He broke that shaft, and that's been on back order for like 2 weeks now. And we're getting dumped on with snow. So last week he went out and bought himself a new snowblower. So when I get this one running, he's gonna donate it to the shop and we'll use it there, or he said he'll sell it, one or the other. So I gotta order a cam for that, and hopefully if that gets back ordered, both of them will come in at the same time. This is done. I can get it out of my way and set it somewhere in my way while I work on that engine. I think I'll let that cool off. That's a little toasty, but runs good. I adjusted the idle on it so it would quit. The governor was working against itself because it was set down too low because there's no throttle cable on it. So once I screwed in that screw, hey, it runs pretty good. I like it. I guess I can take this off now. This comes with several different ways of charging it. You got all kinds of ports in here. You can charge your phone with this thing. It's quite a nice little outfit. And you can charge it with a phone cube. It takes forever. It came with a cable you can plug into your cigarette lighter. And I used this for a couple other jobs, and I wore it down to about 10%. Plugged it into my cigarette lighter in my truck outside. It charged it up in a little over an hour. So, and supposedly they say when that's fully charged, you can throw it in your car. Comes with a little bag to store everything in, and it'll stay charged for 2 years. And it's something handy just to carry around with you, especially this time of year, if you have any battery problems. I know the other day when it was 3 degrees, the old truck started pretty slow. I did put a battery in that when the shop owned it. Oh, I can't remember, 8 or 10 years ago. I mean, it's due, but it starts every day. So that's it for this engine. This is a 17 horse. They were missing some of the parts on the top. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to build, let's just say, a cart, and it's going to be motorized because I'm tired of pushing a wheelbarrow. And I'm going to mock it up out of 2x2s, out of wood, so I can get it the way I want it. Then I'll buy some 2-inch square steel tubing and weld it up. So that's it for this. Until next time, work safe, have fun, and I'll talk to you soon. So long.